Today on Steampunk Minecraft, the train station, home of, you guessed it, trains. That's right, folks. You guys have been asking for this one for a really long time. We are finally making real trains with the Create mod. Join me as I guide you through the process to make the ultimate locomotive. This is episode 7 of Steampunk Minecraft. You want to play mod packs with friends, but you can't seem to find a good server. And the free ones? With the big mod packs these days, free servers are just too laggy. Luckily for you, there's BISECT hosting. They host my server, and with plenty of affordable options, they can host your server too. And the best part is, they support almost every mod pack. Use code Doublesal at checkout for 25% off your first order. BISECT hosting, a great site for great servers. I have a big problem. I want to get access to the ocean, and well, I can't do that with an airplane. See, if you take a look at this map, the closest ocean is surrounded by forests, and I'm not trying to chop all those trees down just to build a runway. So, I finally decided to build a train. This is just my personal opinion, but it's a lot easier to build over the trees than just chop them down. The first thing we needed was a steam engine, as well as a fluid tank which would act as our boiler. When the two are combined, you get a steam engine. It's in the name. Steam engines run on steam, so naturally you do need a heat source underneath. And the cool thing about the Create mod is that you can actually upgrade your steam engine so that it can handle more stress. But before making the train itself, I needed a train station. A perfect home for our beautiful, soon-to-be steam locomotive. It's a good thing I have a huge supply of bricks, complimentary from our clay farm, of course. It's about time I started using this clay too, because this chest was almost at capacity. I had the plants, I had the building materials, now I just needed the build sites. I began chopping down many acacia trees when I noticed that my iron axe, it was about to break. So, once again, it was time for an upgrade. The iron axe with its 250 durability pales in comparison to the steel axe with 1000 durability. Gotta love upgrades. The build site was set. It was finally time to start placing blocks. I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted this to look like. I was gonna stick to the acacia and brick palette while incorporating some sandstone. At the center of the building was going to be this massive tunnel that would still allow us access to the airport. I also wanted to maintain the light posts that we had. I didn't want to mess up any of the wiring that we had set up in the previous videos, so this tunnel had to be tall. Anyways, I kept building through the night. I even had to use dirt instead of scaffolding because honestly, I had yet to see any bamboo in this world. Although I do think I got a little carried away with the details because this thing could have been finished way sooner had I not decided to decorate every nook and cranny. After a few in-game days, this train station was finally starting to take shape. Just like the power plant, I wanted the train station to have natural light on the inside, so I even incorporated a glass ceiling. It was a labor of love, but no station was going to be too good for our train. One of the final things I worked on was the platform itself. This is the area where people usually wait to get on the train. I added railings, I even added light posts. And after applying the finishing touches, the train station was finally complete. And here it is. Here is the building at different angles. We got a pretty decent platform on the outside, and one nice one on the inside, complete with glass ceiling, of course. And as for the tunnel of the train station, I decided to keep it simple. The important thing is that I still had access to the airport. And just in case you were wondering, this is what the backside of the building looks like. Now this is great and all, but the only thing missing now, aside from the train, were the tracks. So, I had to make my way back to the workshop to begin the next project. And this one began with a lot of cobblestone. It was time to make train tracks. And to make tracks, you actually need a steam engine. Well, not really, but our water wheels were overloaded, and the steam engine was going to be the perfect source to power our assembly line. Crafted the steam engine, and then I gathered the fluid tanks. All I needed now was a heat source, and a campfire was gonna do just fine. I began setting up in the space formerly occupied by our immersive engineering machines. I just love how the mod devs didn't decide to make a whole separate steam engine block, but instead just recycle the fluid tank block. When you attach the steam engine block to the fluid tank block, it transforms both of them, making them into one. The steam engine was built, but we still needed water. Thankfully, there was a river nearby. With the help from some pipes and a pump, we were gonna start getting water from the river and putting it into the machine. I started building the pipe setup. With the help of some shafts and mechanical belts, I was able to get the pipes running by connecting it to a water wheel. To see if the water was actually flowing, I right-clicked one of the pipes, which made it transparent. Thanks to this feature, you could actually see the fluids moving inside of the pipe in real time. And just with that, all the water was going into the steam engine. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. The steam engine was too small, there wasn't enough heat, nor was there enough water. So I had to make it bigger. I even had to add a second pipe system for more water. More water means more steam, and more steam means more power. The steam engine finally came to life. The engine even had a little gauge to show you how much power it was producing. We were on the low end, but it could handle way more machines now. Speaking of machines, it was time to attach the conveyor belts, because I needed a place to begin making my railroad tracks. I attached the deployers, gave them iron nuggets, and then I covered the sides of the belt with andesite casings. I put stone slabs on the assembly line, the base item for the tracks, and they were converted into railroad tracks. The creation of these train tracks marked a new milestone for our world. I don't need to remind you guys of the great train incident for my Create Above and Beyond series. All you need to know is that I was finally getting real trains. Eventually, I added funnels so that the materials could come out, be converted, and then go back into the chest for storage. Back at the train station, I started placing the tracks when I discovered a very useful feature. Instead of placing one track at a time, you could actually place multiple tracks at a time. With the tracks laid down, we could finally call this building a train station. Speaking of which, I had to craft a block called a train station. But to do that, I needed a train casing. And to craft a train casing, I needed a sturdy sheet, an item we had already made in a previous video. We needed crushed obsidian, so I gathered the obsidian blocks that I had and I threw them into the grind wheels. Once the obsidian was all ground up, I took it to the lava dispensers so that it could be covered in lava, and once that process was complete, I had to take the items, put them on an assembly line, and have them flattened with a mechanical press. I then picked up a barrel where I was storing the items and moved it to the assembly line. I attached a funnel to the side, and the items were automatically being converted into sturdy sheets. Look at them go. The beauty of automation. Our items were being made, and then they were automatically going into the chests. It took a few minutes, but eventually we had what we needed. Next, I needed to make more brass. I put the copper and zinc into the alloy kiln, and then I began placing the logs. Reason being, we needed to convert all of them into brass casings. Once the logs were stripped of their bark, I began right-clicking them with the brass ingot, making them into the casings we needed. And after we had the casings we needed, I had to right-click them with the sturdy sheets to make them into train casings. I mined our blocks, crafted a compass, and with that we finally had the materials to make the train station. I gathered some fluid tanks, more on that later, and after that I had to make a train controller. With the train controller crafted, we now had a means of steering the train. Lastly, I needed a cushy seat to sit on while I was driving the train, and the next step after that was to actually build it. At least a demo version. I placed a few more tracks down just to make sure I had enough space, and once everything was finally laid out, I took out the train station block and began picking a spot to build the thing. But there's more to it. You actually have to go into the block and set it to assembly mode to start constructing the train. Once it's activated, you take a train casing, right-click a track, and make a bogie. This was going to be the foundation of our entire train. God, they did a good job with this mod. Now, I'm not the best when it comes to making vehicles in Minecraft. I had no idea what I wanted this train to look like, so I just started placing things anywhere. My main goal was to actually understand how this vehicle was going to work, so I decided to start off with something extremely simple, a wooden platform on wheels. That was it. I know, it's nothing fancy, but come on, I need to know how to actually make this thing work first. So with the wooden platform, I glued it all together, added the engine, put the seats in the controllers, even a chest, and of course you can't forget the train whistle. Every train needs a whistle. I went to the train station, clicked assemble train, and everything was fused together into one vehicle. Now for the moment of truth. Does it work? I took a seat, accessed the controls, and wouldn't you know it, I got it working the first try. I took the wagon and brought it all the way back to the very end of the train station. Now when going in reverse, the train is pretty slow, but when you move it forward, it slowly gains momentum, and eventually it just takes off. I had finally made a working train, albeit an ugly one, but it was a working train nonetheless. After so many episodes, this right here, this was a step in the right direction. I mean, what is a steampunk world without steam trains? But I wasn't stopping here. We needed a real train, and this wagon, it served its purpose. So it was time to dismantle it and start drafting plans for a true vehicle. The first step into making our beautiful train involved crushing wheels, and to do that, we had to reassemble our automatic crafter. Now you may be wondering, what are we crushing? Absolutely nothing. We just needed the wheels because they looked cool. I crafted 6 of them, and they would make up the front portion of our train. After that, I needed to make steel blocks, and one of the ways to do that was by putting iron in a blast furnace. So yeah, this is taking way too long. Another way of getting steel was by grinding up coke coal and combining the dust with iron. But to get the coke coal that we needed, we had to put regular coal in a coke oven, and that took even longer. A block takes 9 ingots, and I was not going to be doing that process 9 times. And then I realized something. To get the immersive engineering block, you only need 1 of the ingots. The other 8 can be any type of steel. I went to my lava fan and converted a bunch of iron into steel. These would be the reject ingots that would make up most of the block, though I still had to make 9 immersive engineering ingots. All I had to do was make a steel pickaxe with any type of steel, melt it down in an arc furnace, and it would convert it into steel from immersive engineering. With my reject ingots, I surrounded them with the good steel ingots and got my immersive engineering steel block. Next, I grabbed some ice packs because I was going to the nether. Reason being, I needed nether wart blocks to make red nether bricks. Thankfully, there was a crimson forest nearby, so I hopped into the gyrodyne and flew all the way over there, trying to do my best to avoid mosquitoes. The crimson forest was in sight, and as I made my approach, I was ambushed by the one thing I wanted to avoid. You have no idea how annoying these things are. They're so difficult to hit and they just latch onto your face. I was able to dig a hole and get away from them. I began collecting nether wart blocks, but it was taking way too long to do it by hand, so I decided to make a hoe. That tool greatly increased my mining speed, and I was able to collect enough for my train build. I then had to make a second trip to my nether mines. I hopped into the mech suit, zoomed all the way to the end of the tunnel, and found my abandoned drill machine. There was still plenty of netherrack, so I collected as much as I could carry, and then I had to make a quick return because I was burning up. I threw the blocks into the fire and watched them convert into bricks. I crafted the bricks into blocks, and then I merged the blocks with the nether wart, making them nice and red. Next, I needed flywheels, because every train needs wheels. Next, I created this thing. I don't know what you call it, but it's that thing that goes in the front of the train. It was a long and tedious process, but I finally had all the blocks I needed to start building my train. Now I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I was scratching my head over this design for the longest time. It was so bad that I had to go into a creative world and build the entire thing and then copy the design over on the survival world. After so many hours of trial and error and going through design after design, I think I was able to come up with something that I was satisfied with, and I hope you guys like it too, because the last train I made was god-awful. All that was left to do now was to glue the entire thing. Now, you'd think that'd be easy, but that wasn't the case. You see, gluing a big structure like this is pretty difficult. Makes it even worse when you continue to add stuff the way I did, but come on. These brackets on the side really tied it all together. I got this idea from other YouTubers, and I can see why they chose to go with this design. There was one final thing to add to the train, and that was a headlight. So, I crafted one, slapped it onto the front, and look at that. I mean, it just looks like it belongs there. It was finally time to put the train to the test, and like all of our first trial runs, the result wasn't satisfactory. This is what happens when you don't glue your vehicles properly. It looked like our train had gotten into some freakish accident. It took a few more tries, more than I'm proud to admit, but eventually I was able to glue the entire structure together, and when I was activating it, I was able to move it in one piece. Can you believe it? Finally, we had a working vehicle, an actual train. You guys can stop commenting that the Create mod has real trains now. I'm kidding, I love the engagement. But seriously, I built one, so there you go. I was one step closer to my final goal of getting to the ocean, but I still had to build the tracks itself. I laid out a ton of cobblestone in the direction of the ocean, and then I came to a roadblock. Literally, an entire mountain was in the way. So, the question was, how was I gonna solve this problem? I had a couple of ideas, but before I began implementing them, I wanted to see how fast the train could really go, so I laid down most, if not all, of the tracks that I had in my inventory. It was finally time to see what this thing could really do. With plenty of track ahead of her, this train steamed forward. This was by far the fastest mode of transportation that we had in this world. The train came to a grinding halt as soon as it came face to face with a mountain, and there was the problem. So how do you get a train through a mountain? Well, obviously you have to make a tunnel. So I decided to attach a bunch of drills to the front of the train, and I just assumed that this machine would work like the drill in the nether. Although there was one annoying hiccup that I had to take care of. All those tracks I laid down, I had to break them because I was going to be attaching a deployer to the drill, and this would put down more tracks every time the train went forward. There it is, in all of its glory, the biggest drill I've ever made to date. Now I'm going to apologize already because this thing was extremely laggy, and you're gonna notice the frame rate drop. But as you can see, the train is moving forward, the deployer is placing the tracks down, and my frame rate is suffering as a result of it. But as soon as the train made contact with the mountain, it began to carve right through it. Thanks to our drills, the train was boring a tunnel right through this massive mountain. I even managed to break through and find a cave. Yes, everything was all going according to plan until I came across some lava, and I was not going to take any risk because I'm pretty sure the lava was going to phase through and burn me. I pulled the train out of the tunnel, went back into the cave, and found myself at a lava waterfall, one that I had to block up with dirt without getting burnt to a crisp. I made a tower of dirt blocks and plugged up the hole where the lava was leaking from. After that, I went back to the train as quickly as I could because mobs were spawning. As soon as I hopped in, I went forward and I proceeded to drill into the mountain, hoping that I would see the other side pretty soon. And eventually I did. I was finally through the entire mountain, we were in the jungle, and it wasn't long until I finally spotted that big, beautiful blue ocean. Our goal was complete. We had made our first train line. The only thing left to do now was to back up the train all the way back to the train station, which was gonna take a while, but you know what? I was just gonna enjoy the ride regardless. There you have it, folks. Trains. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of today's video. I will see you next time. This has been Doublesal. Have a great day.